Imagine receiving 50 invoices over an email every single week. Now just imagine downloading each and every attachment, reading each and every invoices, manually updating ERP system, chasing manager approval, and tracking payment dates. Sounds exhausting, right? But what if AI can do all this automatically in less than 30 seconds? Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Karan, and in today's video I will show you how to build an AI powered invoice processing system using Power Automate. So let's get started. So before getting started, let's first understand the traditional approach that most of the finance team follows to process invoices manually. Now in manual invoice processing, vendor sends an invoice via email. Second, someone from the accounting team or finance team download those invoices and save it into particular location. Third is to read those invoices and extract meaningful information. Fourth is to copy data into another system. It can be your ERP system or any accounting system. Fifth is to request approval. Now let's say if your invoice amount exceeds the limit, separate manager approval is required to process the invoices. Sixth is to update the ERP database. Seventh is to create payment reminders so that the vendors are paid on time. And finally, send confirmation emails and update audit logs. Now that's a quite lengthy process, right? Now multiply that by thousands. Every single invoice processed manually adds up. When your team handles hundreds or thousands of invoices each month, the inefficiency doesn't just add, it gets multiplied. Now the cost of invoice processing are as follows. First is the human error. Since data is processed manually, mistakes can happen. A single typo in an invoice amount or vendor details can lead to incorrect payments. According to industry studies, manual invoice processing carries a significant hidden cost between $10 to $15 per invoice. Multiplying that across hundreds or thousands of invoices every month, and the financial impact becomes impossible to ignore. And that's exactly where automation comes in. So this is an entire workflow that we are going to build today. So over here we have a trigger that whenever a new email arrives with subject invoice, this flow will get triggered. And after that, if that invoice has any attachment, it will get saved into a SharePoint drive. Then we will also create a custom AI builder, AI model, which can extract vendor details like vendor name, number, amount, date, etc. And after that, we are just checking whether the invoice amount is greater than $5,000. If yes, then approval needs to be taken from manager. If no, continue without approval. Then after that, update the ERP system. Then create a reminder and then send an email to the vendors. Okay, so now let's create our Power Automate flow. So I will just click on this create button and I will select automated cloud flow because our flow needs to be get triggered when a new email arrives. Now it is asking me to provide a flow name and choose your flow trigger. So I will give it a meaningful name. So let's call it invoice processing workflow. And for trigger, I will search for when a new email arrives. And I will click on create. I will just select this trigger and I will click on this show all advanced parameter. And over here, I will select include attachment as yes. Then only with attachments also as yes. And for the subject filter, I will filter out only those emails which contains invoice in their subject line. So over here I will write an power effects expression. So contents bracket here trigger outputs and question mark, and in body hyphen subject. So this should needs to be in single quotation mark. Okay, and comma, and over here I will mention invoice. I will just close the bracket and click on add. Now this should filter the emails which only contains invoices in their subject line. Next, I will add an action. So I will search for get attachments. So from this Office 365 Outlook, I will select get attachments version 2. In this, I will provide the message ID. So this message ID would be my dynamic content from when a new email arrives. So over here, I will just click on this see more option. And from here, I will select the message ID. Same for the attachment ID. I will select a dynamic content like attachment ID. Okay, cool. Now next, I will add another action that is called create file. So since I want to save this attachment into a SharePoint drive, so I will just select a create file from this SharePoint actions, and over here I will provide my site address and the folder path where I want to save this file or the attachment. So I will select SharePoint. Okay, I will just select share documents, and for the file name I will select the dynamic content from this get attachment action. So I will select the name of the attachment, and the file content would be my content bytes. Okay, so this is done. Now next, after creating file, I will add one more action, which is an AI builder action. Since we want to extract invoice date, invoice number, so for that we will be using an AI builder action. So I will search for AI builder, and from here I will select this process invoices. Yeah, but before that, okay, so here it is asking me to provide invoice file. So first of all, I will just need to get the file. So after this create file, I will add one more action, which is called as get file content. So over here I will select get file content, and again I will provide address and give the file identifier. So it will be my this body.id, the unique ID of the file or folder. Okay. Now in the process invoice action, for this invoice file, I will select that file content from this get file action. Okay. Now this process invoice will provide me some values like invoice number, invoice date, invoice due date, vendor name, etc. So to store those values, I will add some compose action. So I will click over here, and inside this data operation, I will select compose, and I will give it a name. I will call it as vendor name, and in the inputs, I will select a dynamic content from this process invoice. So I will search for vendor name. So this is the vendor name. Now again, I will add compose for storing invoice number, invoice date, invoice amount, and invoice due date. So let's add them. Now we need to check that whether this invoice amount is greater than 5,000 or not. If yes, then we need an manager approval to process this invoice. So I will add condition. So click on this control, and over here I will select condition. And now over here I will just write some PowerFX function called as int, which will convert my text into int if I have any text value. So I will select that compose action. So invoice amount. Okay, this is my invoice amount. Okay, now add. Now this, if this is greater than, again I will add int 5,000. Okay, add. Okay, my condition is done. Now if this condition is true, I need some approval. So I will add an approval action. Approval. So over here I have 4 options. So from that I will select this start and wait for approval. I will create a separate video on this just to explain what are these different types of standard approvals. So for now I will just select this start and wait for an approval. And from this drop down I will select approve and reject first to respond. Okay, and I will give it a name title. Let's call it invoice approval. Right now I will just assign it to myself. So I will just mention my email address. Okay, and if you want to provide more details, you can just write over here in this detail section. So I will just check the outcome of this approval. So to check that, I will again add condition. So I will just type here condition. Okay, and over here I will select a dynamic content. So here I will select the outcome. Now this outcome needs to be equal to approve. So I will just write over here as string approve. Okay, now if this condition is true, I will add this invoice detail into my SharePoint list. So I have created a SharePoint list where I can store this invoice details. So let me just go to that SharePoint list. Okay, so this is my invoice SharePoint list. It's called invoice processing. So here we have 5 fields: vendor name, invoice number, invoice date, invoice amount, and due date. So since I don't have access to the ERP system, so that's why I am just adding those details into the invoice. But you can connect to your ERP system and make an entry of this invoice into the system. So I will add a create item. Now I will, from the site address, I will select the same demo. From the list, I will select the invoice processing, and if I click on show all, now it is asking me to provide a vendor name, invoice number, invoice date, invoice amount, and due date. So I will just map these values from those compose action. So I will select this, and over here I will just click on vendor name. Okay. For invoice number, same, I will select invoice number. Same for invoice date. Invoice amount, and due date. Okay. Now let's say this condition for right, my invoice amount is not greater than 5,000, which is less than 5,000. So I don't need an approval from a manager. So I can directly create an item into my SharePoint list. So what I will do, I will just copy this action, create item, and over here inside this false branch, I will right click and paste an action. Okay, so it got pasted. Okay, so here it will simply create an item into my SharePoint list. Okay, now so I will just save this flow. Okay, so now it is saying to see it work now, perform the starting action. Okay, so now we need to send an email with the subject line containing invoice with attachment. So I will just open my Outlook and I will send one email. Okay, so I am sending one email. So I will just select the contact, and I have given the subject as invoice, and I have added this attachment as invoice. Okay, but let me quickly show you what this invoice contains. So just a second, I will just open that invoice. This is my invoice. So over here you can see the vendor name, then you can see the invoice number, invoice date, then we can also see the invoice amount over here, the subtotal, right? Okay, so amount total due, that is 840, and payment terms net 30 days, which is also called as, I think this is due dates. So let's see if my workflow extract all this information. So I will close this PDF and I will go back to that Power Automate flow. I will open that email and I will click on send. Okay. Now my Power Automate flow should get triggered. So let's wait for a couple of seconds. Okay, so my workflow got triggered. So now you can see it is processing each step-by-step actions. Okay, now it is saying your flow ran successfully. Now let's check what is the output and how my data gets saved into my SharePoint list. Okay, so it went through this false branch because I think my invoice amount is less than 5,000. So let's see. Okay, yeah, 840, right? Which is less than 5,000. But if my invoice amount would be greater than 5,000, then it should follow it. It might follow this path where I will require an approval from the manager. Now let's check our SharePoint list. I will just refresh this. Okay, so now it is giving me the vendor name, invoice number, invoice date, invoice amount. So I'm not getting this due date. Let me check. Okay, so over here it is giving me nothing, no output. So now in this flow, I will add one more action just to send an confirmation email to vendor. So I will just expand this condition, and again I will expand another condition over here. After this create item, I will add an action called send an email. Okay, and over here I will just send an email, and here I will provide my name, and in the subject I will write like concat. Over here I will mention invoice. Then here I will take a dynamic content. Over here I will search for invoice number. Okay, and again I will write here received and approved. Okay, and I will add this, and now insert the body. I will mention invoice um, let's add hello, add a dynamic content over here. Let's add vendor name. So this vendor name over here. Okay, comma, then invoice number hyphen invoice number received and approved. Next I will mention invoice amount, and I will select the invoice amount. Okay, next. So I will just give over here power. Okay, Now same, I will just copy action, and in this false branch, I will again paste that action, but I will make some changes. So over here, I will remove this and approved, because it is directly getting added to this invoice to my SharePoint list. Okay, so now this is done. I will just save this. Okay, so my flow is been saved successfully. Now I will click on this test, and now this time I will not select this manually. I will just go to this automatic with a recent used trigger, and I will just click on this and test. Okay, so it is saying your flow ran successfully. Let me check my Outlook. Now if I go to my Outlook and in my inbox, okay, so I am getting this email. So hello, not another invoice number received, invoice amount this is. Okay, good. Now let me try a different invoice which has an amount greater than 5,000. Okay, so this invoice, urban bill contractor, has total due amount of 14,940 euro. So let's check this if our workflow is working correctly. So okay, so I'm back to my Outlook. Now over here, instead of this invoice, I will select the one which has amount greater than 5,000. So let's remove this invoice from here, and this was the invoice. So I will just browse that invoice. So let's go. Browse this computer to video, and this one, and open it, and I will just select my contact over here, and let me try to delete this and click on send. Now let's click on this pack, and over here within this 28-day history section, let's try to refresh over here, and okay, you can see this flow is in running state, so that means our flow has been triggered. Let's open it. Let me just check my email whether I am getting that email or not. So I will just go back to my inbox, and in my inbox, yeah, I am getting the email. So it is for approval, because since my amount is greater than 5,000, so it is asking me to approve it. So for example, let's say if I approve, submit, okay, now yeah, so now you can see I am receiving another email which is saying this invoice received and approved, invoice amount 14,940. And also if you want to send the reminders to the payable team and the finance team so that they won't miss the due dates and pay those bills to the vendors on time, you can create a separate flow for that. But since right now I don't have the invoices with the due dates, so I won't be creating that flow. But if you want me to create a separate video on that, let me know in the comments. And if you find this video tutorial valuable, just give a thumbs up, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more Power Automate tutorials and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the upcoming automation projects. So thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one.